Sharon, we ready to go? Okay. Yeah, you're definitely on the camera there, Sharon.
But usually I'm not on YouTube.
Oh, good. All right, we're going to open the Council Budget Committee for October the 29th, 2016. And obviously, we're much further ahead on the capital process than we anticipated, which is really good in some respects. And I'd like to ask Lucy for some opening remarks, because I believe you have some things to add to our conversation this morning. Whenever you're ready, please.
Yep. So good morning, Mayor Brown, members of the committee. We do have from yesterday's deliberation, staff did make a couple of changes to the opening budget, and the changes are reflected up on your screen there. We have removed the $45,000 for the yards work project from the, yes, and that's in corporate properties. And then in our utility, from the siphon break tower project, Director Stevens has confirmed that we can reduce that project by $450,000. So that's a total of $505,800 that the capital budget has changed by, and we have $38.9 million bottom line currently. There was one other project we talked about. We wanted to make sure what the direction from the committee would be on that particular one, and that is the CPR crossing at Luckstone, and whether the committee is okay with moving the $500,000 forward, or whether you wanted it to remain in 2017. I'm sure Director Stevens can provide a little bit more context or give a refresher on that if you'd like before we decide. Would you like him to do that?
Please.
Okay.
I've never seen him in running shoes before. That's pretty good. He bound to his chair.
Good morning, Mayor Brown and members of the Budget Committee. Just as a refresh on the proposed CP rail crossing, pedestrian crossing near Nose Creek and Luckstone. A couple of comments. One was we were proceeding down a track with CP Rail to look at what was the most appropriate form of crossing to deal with the trespass that's occurring and the flooding of the tunnel that's occurring. An at-grade pedestrian crossing is a bit unconventional when it's not coupled with a road crossing. They seem to indicate some support for an at-grade pedestrian crossing, and that formed the basis of the plus minus $500,000 that was included in the 2017 capital budget ask. We have had some recent discussion with CP. There seems to be some reevaluation and concern that that may not be the most appropriate approach. One of the things they brought to our attention was the impact on our anti-whistling, and with an at-grade pedestrian crossing could require whistling in that location until such time as we proceeded through all of the formal safety reviews and so forth that would exempt that crossing, and that is a considerable process. So through subsequent discussions with CP earlier this week, staff are concerned that the at-grade proposal may be in jeopardy. I had indicated to Council Budget Committee yesterday we may want to pull that off the plate or move that from our 2017 ask, continue our discussions with CP, and at the point we have a confirmed approach to move forward with the actual project. So that would result in removing that plus minus $500,000 from the engineering services 2017 capital ask. The intention would not be to just let it sit idle. It would be to pursue discussions with CP Rail, and at the point there was a viable in principle approval, to return back to Council Budget Committee and ultimately Council requesting an amendment, presumably in the 2017 budget. Staff would like to proceed with an enhancement and deliver an alternative crossing in that location in 2017. It is just going to require some additional work and support from CP Rail. So we did, just as a side note, we did provide some earlier information to council on this issue and provided a range of options. Those range from, pardon me, the at-grade pedestrian crossing that you see in your current package to a standalone additional pedestrian culvert specifically for the function of pedestrian crossing. We'd also looked at an overpass, essentially a grade separation, and we wanted to proceed with the at-grade crossing, which was the basis of our original 2017 ask. So our recommendation at this point is to remove it from the 2017 capital ask, allow us to conclude our discussions with CP, and expect that we will be back probably in early 2017 with a specific alternative proposal to the at-grade pedestrian crossing that's currently shown. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, Councillor Hunter.
Lauren, have they given you any indication as to what would be acceptable if the original one wasn't?
Through the chair, in fact, they have indicated that they would be supportive of an additional tunnel crossing across the tracks. One of the big influences, though, is whether that can be open cut and there's an actual train blockage in terms of a reasonable period to shut down the tracks, which obviously CP, that's their lifeblood. Just to give you an indication, though, if we're able to open cut, we're probably in the range of $1 million project. If we have to tunnel, it probably doubles the cost. So what we would like to do is to, if we are pursuing the tunnel crossing, to get a commitment from CP for a track block so we could actually construct. Early indications are they are supportive of that. We need some additional time to flush that out and make sure we can budget the appropriate amount for that.
And it's not likely they're, so if they're telling us our $500,000 project isn't a go, but we'll be happy with the $1 million one, I don't imagine they're being good corporate citizens and are throwing any money into the mix.
There is no indication that CP will provide financial support for this project.
None whatsoever. Is that in the realm of possibility, or is it a matter of?
It is not. It is not. And there are some specific protocols where there are road crossings. There is a Transport Canada funding formula for, depending on who's senior on the crossing, to provide some element of funding. In this case, it is a brand new crossing. There is no historical basis for CP or requirement to provide funding towards the project. Certainly CP is quite clear that there is a pedestrian trespass issue there, and they've indicated they'll be very supportive of working with the city to determine an appropriate form of crossing, but they are bringing to light some reservations about their original thoughts that they could support us on an at-grade crossing.
So other than an overpass, regardless of what the alternative is, you're still going to be trespassing on CPR when you cross it as a pedestrian, correct?
Through the chair, I mean, currently if somebody goes through a fence and up and over a track, that is a trespass. If it is an approved crossing subsurface or with bells and signals and track panels, that is, I guess, an approved form of pedestrian crossing across the CP rail.
So they approve it, they just don't help pay for it?
Yeah, CP is not indicating any form of financial support for the project.
For the hundreds of people that are listening, we just want them to understand that CP tells us what to do but doesn't give us any money how to get there, so thanks.
There wouldn't be hundreds of people listening. Any other questions? Councillor Coulson, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I definitely understand that we don't want the train blowing their whistle as they're driving through the middle of Luckstone and backing onto those houses. But if an at-grade crossing had working arms and lights, would they still need to blow their whistle?
Through the chair, there is a specific approval process and protocol that needs to be followed in order to enact the anti-whistling component. And I will say that both Transport Canada and CP Rail, just simply from a safety perspective, it is quite a rigorous process to exempt a crossing from train whistles, because the standard is and on the basis of safety to alert pedestrians, motorists, anyone in the vicinity to the presence of trains.
Okay. It's really disappointing that I don't know if maybe this budget committee we could take it off and endorse the fact that we're welcoming staff to come back, and that we would fully support funds moving forward if we can to make that a safer crossing, because in my mind, this needs to be one of our priorities for our pathways. But that's my thoughts.
No, I'm with you 100%. Anyone else? Yep, Councilor Chapman.
I agree. I think if we take it off and it goes back on, come back with more information once we hear from CP.
Laura, is there any way just to do an article in the paper, communications plan or something, just to let the residents know? Because this has been ongoing since I got elected, this pathway, and, I don't know how to address the issue without, as Candace is, ignoring it in the budget, because we want to get it done, repaired. It's unsafe, it freezes over, and all the challenges that exist with it. But it'd just be nice to be able to get out in front of it and let people know exactly what's going on. And certainly if we just did it in the Luckstone area and put something in there. I don't know if we can put it in their water bill or a notice or something to say that we are looking at fixing the problem, but it isn't as easy as that. Sorry, Paul, go ahead. And then Lauren, whenever you're ready.
I think through your worship, and I'm not sure we need formal direction here, but we would just go ahead and talk to communications and work something out.
So Ken, is this so I'm clear, you want to have it in the budget, or are you okay to amend the budget through the year?
I understand that we don't know if it's going to cost us $500,000 or $1.2 million or where CP is at with what it's going to look like, but I just don't want it to come back to budget committee and have us, have to agonize over it and scrutinize it halfway through the year. I would like some sort of statement from this council saying that although we are removing it from the budget, that this is a priority and we fully support it coming back. I mean, it's going to be costly to fix it, but I think regardless, it has to be done. And it's unfortunate we have to wait for CP to tell us exactly what we're going to have to do. But those are my thoughts.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Hunter, and then Deputy Mayor Hague.
I think Deputy Mayor Hague was first here.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Hague.
Thank you. So you're just looking for a statement in principle? Because I don't think we can, what if it comes back at $2 million? Right? And or who knows, whatever the cost could be, depending on whatever the recommendation is, because that's the only solution.
If I could, Your Worship?
Yes, please.
I understand what you're saying. To watch 5 kids cross those tracks, probably more than 20 times a day, it's just so dangerous that even if it did come back at $2 million, I don't know what the right answer is. And even if we had an overpass, if we, at the end of the day, we had to pay for a pedestrian overpass there, they're still going to cross those tracks. So realistically, we need an at-grade crossing, or we need some type of a tunnel that won't flood and that won't ice over and that won't be too dangerous. And I don't know that we can, that it's responsible for us to say that if it's going to be too expensive, it won't happen, because it's a danger.
So I really appreciate that point, but we're not going to eliminate every aspect of the railroad crossing within our city limits where kids aren't going to cross. They're going to cross where they want to cross anyway. So it definitely will impact that area. But no, I hear what you're saying as well. Councilor Hunter.
So I'm happy to support what the recommendations are of CPR once we've done some costing, et cetera. I'm also hoping that the way Ottawa seems to be pushing money out the door, that perhaps there'll be some type of infrastructure funding that can help us contribute towards that. So happy to support it once I see some firm numbers, and hopefully we'll get some support from the federal government. So.
Okay, anyone else want to comment? Councilor Burley or Councilor Bellick? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Lauren. Unless you want to add something?
Well, Your Worship, just for the sake of providing an additional alternative to council, because I do understand the concern about it is sort of a value-added safety project. The other alternative that council could consider, if you were looking about the not wanting to remove it, is we could change the basis of the budget estimate to a standalone pedestrian crossing, which puts it more in that range of $1 million, with a component that staff would, we would proceed forward with obtaining the approvals and report back to council, for instance, in the first quarter of 2017 to advise where we're at with that and to finalize, I shouldn't say finalize funding, but provide an update where we're at, estimated costs and construction scheduling. I mean, that could be another option if council were looking to consider. Again, our preference would be, given the uncertainties on this, to return with a firm number. But I just did want to add another alternative for council if they were looking for another option.
Yeah, my preference would be to do as you said, because I'd hate to have it in the budget and then people say, oh, yeah, put it in the budget, and then you guys didn't do what you said you were going to do. At least we can amend it and let them know ahead of time that this is what's happening. I'm certain the Echo and City View would pick up the stories. We could have Bob contact them or whatever and take a picture down there and just, I don't think it'd be that challenging. But if there's anything else on that, we can proceed. Okay, thank you, Lauren. Are we free-for-alling now? Can I ask some questions, or would you like to continue on?
Just if I can, I just want
Yes.
to confirm, so we're going to
Please.
we're going to move $500,000, we'll move it over to 2018
Yep.
for now. And just as a note, obviously, we always put out press releases with budgets. We can, it can also be a little bit of a mention in those press releases as well, so.
I'm not going to say anything, but I don't think everybody reads those budget press releases.
They don't? Oh,
No.
it's too
I'm not
bad.
100% sure, Lucy, but I don't think so.
Oh.
That's no disrespect to budget. Sharon, I had a question around Mark around the cemetery land. Does that need to be in camera? If we're getting specifics on acreage, things like that, or? We talked about it yesterday, Airdrie Cemetery.
I could-
Does it
suppose
need
I
to be
would-
in camera?
I would go in camera, my recommendation anyway.
Okay. Can I get a motion to go on camera? Councillor Burley, thank you. I know, you're the first one I look at. I don't need to. Sorry, Mark, if you could just grab the door. Lucy, whenever you're ready.
I have nothing further for the committee. I'll just, whatever the desire is to move forward from here.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you'd like to proceed.
We'll put it back to the committee. Everyone's, as I said, I wasn't here for most of yesterday, which was quite disappointing, but let's start with the left. Councillor Chapman, if you want to begin, please.
I'm good, Your Worship. I've got nothing to add.
Okay, Councillor Bellick.
Yeah, I think all the questions were answered yesterday, so I'm good with what is proposed here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hunter.
Well, I guess the residents I've been hearing from, I'm good with everything as long as it starts and ends with zero, so we're good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Haig. Deputy Mayor Haig.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe all of my questions were answered yesterday as well, too.
Thank you. Councillor Burley.
Same, Your Worship, the questions we had and the other councillors' questions solidified a few other details, and with the cutbacks now I'm fine with the budget as it is.
It's capital budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coulson.
I'm fine with the capital budget as it is.
Okay, thank you. The only reason I'm going to be voting against it is because I missed most of yesterday, and I want to have a chance, and I was at an event last night until 9:30, so I just didn't have an opportunity to go through it, and if I have any questions, but everything on the surface from the brevity that I've gone through it, it looks very good, and I appreciate all the work that everybody's done toward it, so I'm looking forward to supporting it once our meeting comes to council in December. Go ahead, please.
With that no vote, Your Worship, can we bring this up again when we start the operating, before we get into operating, to have it, by that time you hopefully will be able to get your questions answered and we could solidify it then?
Just based on time, I'm not sure. Depends. I don't want to make that commitment just yet.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to vote on the capital budget, please, as presented, or how do we want to endorse it, right, Lucy? Is there?
Through the chair,
Sorry, I have a motion here, don't I?
I'll just give you a couple of options. Sorry, just when we touched on this at the process in my opening overview. So you have a couple of choices. Either today you can make a motion to recommend to council a a budget with these, I think in total I have 4 projects that have changed from the original budget that came at the beginning of our session. Or you can defer until we get to our operating budget days, and we can take some time then to circle back. I know, Mayor Brown, you mentioned some other questions that you may have as you go through. We can get you answers to that. So in my mind, you have 2 options. As long as by the end of November, would be critical, obviously, to have a recommended operating and capital budget that'll go to council.
Okay, what's the preference of council? Councilor Hunter.
So I would say the same thing, you know, I haven't had enough time to really grind down into it with the events of the past week or so, so I'd prefer to see it deferred, and when we look at the operating piece and kind of see how the two are gonna fit together, that might be a little bit easier.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment, or, yes, Councilor Chapman?
Your worship, I agree. If we put this off to the beginning of the operating budget, it will give you both an opportunity to view the YouTube video from yesterday. You can see what questions were asked, how they were answered. If that works for you, I think at that point, I think
I'm totally comfortable with that.
it'd be
Absolutely.
prudent for us to do that then.
So would you receive for information, Sharon, or? I would think, right? Because we're closing discussion on the capital today. What would the motion be, or do we require one?
You could accept it for information, or you could table the decision until the start of the operating
okay.
budget, either one.
Okay,
Motion
Yeah.
to table.
okay, you're motioning to table, and, sorry, till the conclusion of the operating budget presentation, or something to those effects. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Hague.
To the conclusion, or did we want to approve it prior to operating?
I heard Lucy say we could do it all at once, unless I misunderstood you.
I guess I'll make a suggestion through the chair. You can defer it until the November 25th operating budget deliberation, CBC date.
Correct. I guess my question, that's what I thought the motion was. But what I thought I also heard was that we'd pass it first and then get into the operating. Yeah.
You can, through the chair, you can, there are connections, obviously, between the capital budget and the operating budget, and sometimes it is good to also look to see what's happening in your operating budget. It can be over the course of those couple of days. We can go through operating budget and then circle back to capital and make sure that everything still seems fine as it sits today.
Yeah,
So
that would be my
Sure.
preference. And I think Councillor Hunter, because as he said, he wanted to see them both married together. So we could do the same, we'd have to approve them separately, but that wouldn't be a big deal.
Right, you can table it until, I guess, language-wise, I would suggest table it until CBC operating budget deliberation.
Okay, perfect.
That's fine.
So that's the motion. Sharon, you've captured the motion? Yes? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of accounting. They're all in the back there for all your hard work. And there's nothing else, Lucy, right? No final comments? All right. Pull my stick out. The meeting is adjourned.
Did you say pull your stick out?
I did.